The only thing gayer than being gay is whatever Rousseau and Voltaire had going on. Of all the great philosophical minds of the French Enlightenment, no two were so entwined with each other, so persistently linked across decades, so mutually affectionate, so attentively devoted to each other's writings, and so pathologically insufferable they couldn't help but absolutely hate each other. In the tender spirit of Valentine's Day, let's unpack the 1700s' highest profile best friend breakup. God, I love my job. Alors, faisons un peu d'histoire. So what's the deal with these two? Well, at a glance, Voltaire and Rousseau probably contributed the most to the ideologies that would later fuel the French Revolution. The two wrote extensively on society, morality, religion, and governance, looking past the world in the 1700s as it was to imagine a freer, more collectively prosperous one. Voltaire had written in nearly every genre available, but is best known today for his satires and fierce criticisms of religious intolerance. Rousseau, meanwhile, wrote on the nature of society, articulating the concept of a social contract between a government and its subjects, where a state can only exert authority with the consent of the governed. In an age where France had an absolute monarchy, those are radical ideas. Rousseau and Voltaire didn't strictly agree on anything, but taken together, their ideas were fiercely popular in France and America on the eve of rather transformative revolutions. But how could two guys who only met in person maybe once end up as such an old married couple? That's the magic of technology. Well, mostly just mail. They lived squarely in Europe's Age of Enlightenment, an era spanning from the late 16 to late 1700s, where assorted smarty pantses whipped up new ideas in philosophy, science, and human society, discussing those ideas in person at places like salons and at a distance with copious letters. Which is how our boys here stayed in touch from their first introduction in 1745 to their near simultaneous deaths in 1778. They also kept up to date on each other's latest publications, finding no shortage of opportunities to emphatically disagree with each other on foundational aspects of their respective philosophies. When Rousseau sent Voltaire a copy of his Discourse on Inequality, arguing that civilization and private property are the causes of said inequality, Voltaire sent him back a letter snarking at the logic of the discourse, yet later inviting Rousseau to Voltaire's estate where they could enjoy nature and drink milk from his cows. The tone is basically Voltaire saying, "Hey dumbass, your book sucks, now come hang out with me in the sexy Swiss mountains and drink milk." And that kind of whiplash is frankly most of their relationship. These two were among the smartest and by far the most renowned thinkers in French society at the time, capable of complex thought as well as complex relationships. But what were they like as individuals? Voltaire was the older of the two by 18 years, yet being a professional satirist, he possessed the scheming younger brother energy, which caused the soft and emotional Rousseau no end of trouble. But in fairness to Voltaire, he caused a lot of people trouble. First his father by repeatedly skipping law studies to practice writing instead, then scuffles with two separate aristocrats got him locked in the Bastille prison. However, the second time around he was granted exile to Britain instead. Ah yes, the only place worse than the foul, despairing cells of the notorious Bastille. Angleterre. God, this story is so French. Lucky for Voltaire, this exile became a very productive work trip as he did the rounds with England's most prominent thinkers and developed his taste for prose to complement his talent for poetry and plays. His first major works were a play and a historical epic poem. I hear only cool guys write those. But when he was finally allowed back to France, he published his Letters Concerning the English Nation in a rather unfavorable comparison against France, praising their constitutional monarchy versus French absolutism and lauding the general air of freedom and tolerance in England. This went over pretty poorly with the French censors, so his books were banned, burned, and Voltaire left Paris for the relative safety of the countryside. Oh, by the way, he was also a notorious lottery scammer. See, while all that was going on, him and a mathematician friend figured out a way to cheese the rules for a government-run lottery, buying up tons of tickets extremely cheaply. So these dozen-odd investor buddies got themselves a tidy sum of cash, and with some extra investment afterwards, Voltaire became fabulously wealthy and was able to devote himself fully to writing his plays, histories, poetry, and prose. After 15 years in the east of France and a brief foray into Prussia, Voltaire bought an estate in Switzerland's Republic of Geneva, which coincidentally is the birthplace of our boy Rousseau. Back in 1712, Jean-Jacques Rousseau was born into a Swiss-French family of watchmakers, but after his father was exiled, Rousseau left for neighboring Savoy, where he found accommodation from a woman named Françoise Louise de Varras. He was a Calvinist Protestant of scarcely 15, she was a Catholic twice his age, and by the time Rousseau was 20, he converted to Catholicism and the two became lovers. The relationship between Rousseau and the woman he affectionately referred to as Mama, or Mom, is documented at length in Rousseau's autobiography, The Confessions, and despite a litany of easy jokes about their age gap, the pet names they called each other, or the fact that Madame de Varros was also smanging it with the steward of her house, this is by far the most functional and genuinely loving relationship of Rousseau's life. So naturally, we're going to skip all that and jump ahead to the part where he and Voltaire became murder soulmates. He studied up on math, music, and philosophy, then moved to Paris in 1742. After some odd jobs like a one-year stint as secretary to the ambassador to Venice, Rousseau worked on an opera called Les Fêtes de Ramire, adapting a libretto written by one François-Marie Arouet, better known by his pen name Voltaire. They started exchanging letters soon after, and in 1750, Rousseau sent over his first major publication, the prize-winning essay Discourse on the Arts and Sciences, which argued society corrupts human morality. Coming from the guy who was otherwise known for his music, this first treatise won him immense fame as a philosopher, which now meant he and Voltaire had plenty of debate material to sass each other about. In 1754, Rousseau returned to his home city of Geneva and converted back to Calvinism, writing his second discourse the year after, cue Voltaire's "Your book sucks, come hang out with me, XOXO." And while this was when Voltaire also moved to Geneva, they still seem to have never actually met in person. However, living in the same state put a personal stake in their otherwise abstract ideas about society. Voltaire was a playwright and wanted to build a theater in Geneva, but Rousseau despised theater as a corruptive decadence. Voltaire saw Geneva as too religiously intolerant, while Rousseau thought the outsider Voltaire should mind his own damn business. Now, these two had their arguments before, with starkly differing perspectives on the catastrophic Lisbon earthquake and tsunami of 1755, leading Voltaire to publish his masterpiece satirical novel Candide. But that's a history maker's kind of discussion, and today is a hijinks-only zone. Debates aside, things deteriorated in 1760, when Voltaire did open a theater in Geneva after all, so Rousseau sent him a letter saying, "I hate you, but I hate you with the feelings of one still capable of loving you if you had desired it." Clearly, they could not let each other go. 2 years later, when Rousseau's book Emile scandalized France and Geneva into a fresh round of book burnings and arrest warrants, Voltaire invited him to his new and even shinier estate in Ferney. "Let him come here. I shall receive him with open arms. He shall be master here more than I shall treat him like my own son." Despite the kindness of that invitation, part of Rousseau blamed Voltaire for his fellow Genevans turning on him, so instead Rousseau spent the next decade getting shunted across Europe looking for a place that didn't hate him. He did a stint in England under the hospitality of philosopher David Hume, but the man snooped on Rousseau's mail. Voltaire, meanwhile, had aired salacious details of Rousseau's personal life in an anonymous letter written from the perspective of the citizens of Geneva, which is downright cruel, including his health problems and the illegitimate children he surrendered to a foundling hospital. Guys, stop! It's a big continent. I am begging you, please think about anyone else. But come on, there's absolutely no way they ever could. Voltaire's massive home library had a disproportionate amount of writing by or about Rousseau, with the margins sporting everything from routine disagreement to absolute vitriol. "Bastard of Diogenes' dogs," said one. Yet, and you should be seeing the pattern, they couldn't help but hold some begrudging respect for each other. In 1778, Voltaire rode his immense popularity to re-enter Paris in triumph and debut his play Irène at the Comédie Française, and in a letter to a friend, Rousseau defended Voltaire for his talent in theater, on top of another instance earlier that decade where he came to Voltaire's defense. To cap off 33 years of way too strong emotions, they died within a month of each other, and when the French Revolution struck at the end of the century, they were celebrated as pioneers of revolutionary ideas and interred at the Panthéon in Paris, directly across from each other. Perfect. Whether these two temperamental idiots loved or hated the other could change by the paragraph, but they absolutely deserved each other. Both were so unabashedly themselves, committed to their ideas no matter whom it infuriated. Their philosophies differed widely, but they were brothers in stubbornness, animated by the same core pursuit of a better society. I frankly think both of them would have been worse writers without the fire of the other burning in the back of their skull, and part of me thinks they agreed. In a transcendent flash of self-awareness, Voltaire's "Your book sucks, come visit me" letter from 1755 included the line, "Literary men make a great fuss of their petty quarrels. The rest of the world ignores them or laughs at them." Oh, mon frère, you have no fucking idea. Thank you so much for watching. A very happy Valentine's Day to all, and we'll see you in the next video.